Tonight, President Akufo-Addo set to replace Charlotte Osei with another woman as he narrows his list of names for the vacant Electoral Commission chairperson's role. We have details on the list of names being considered by the president as a main opposition NDC calls for calm among his members, serving notice they will resume their resistance of what they call the shameful subterfuge to subvert the electoral process after the burial of the late Vice President, Mr. Arthur.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, GASM, the nation builder, Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready, and the nationwide medical health insurance, your health care family. Well, John News is learning President Akufo-Addo has narrowed the list of names for the vacant Electoral Commission chairperson's role. Our sources tell us the president is likely to appoint another woman to replace Charlotte Osei, who was removed for incompetence and stated misbehavior, bordering mainly on procurement breaches. Our sources tell us Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu, a professor at the University of Ghana Law Faculty, will most likely get the nod, although the president has also considered the executive director of the Institute of Democratic Governance, IDEC, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete. There are two additional vacant deputy positions, and we are learning that Dr. Akwete may occupy one of those positions. The president has been consulting broadly, and shortly we will detail who the president has so far spoken to. All this is happening on the day the main opposition NDC issued a strongly worded statement calling for calm among its members. Among its members, they say, are restless and agitated. They say and assure them they will resume their resistance to what they call the shameful subterfuge to subvert the electoral process after the burial of late Vice President Mr. Arthur. More on that shortly. We'll bring you the statement from the NDC shortly. But first, I'm joined in the studio by my colleagues Elton Brobe and Raymond Aqua, who have both been working their sources hard today as the president, gets close to making a decision. Elton, let me start with you. You have spent the entire day at the Jubilee House. What have you been told? What are your sources telling you?
Well, we've heard so many names. We've heard about consultations that, was extended to even the former chair of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan. We've heard about 4 names that is on its way to the Council of State for consideration. We've heard names, like you said, Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu. We've heard the founding executive director of IDEX, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete. We've also heard Henry Kwesi Prempeh, who is currently in charge of CDD. And we've also heard Kathleen Adi, who at the moment works with the deputy at the National Commission for Civic Education. So these are the individuals we've told. A lot of consultation went in, and these are the names that is up for consideration.
Now, key point. We'll come to the names shortly, and what sources tell us is the most likely name. And people should remember there are 3 vacancies to fill: the chairperson's position itself and the 2 deputies. But, and as Elton touched on there, and this is a very senior source telling us tonight that the president has consulted with former chair of the EC, Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan, on who should take his place now, a position that he used to occupy, and it makes sense to those close to the president why that name was recommended for the president to consult, because he's the longest serving. In fact, he was a second, and Raymond knows a lot about history. He was a deputy to the first EC chair in 1992 when we this current Democratic dispensation took over, and he has the longest serving EC chairperson. It makes sense to consult him in making a decision such as this. And so we understand the president has spoken to him. They've met, they've spoken, and the president has floated a few names, but mostly he was consulted just to get a feel of what the key qualities should be in the president making the decision on the name, what the key quality should be, and he's been consulted. But other high-ranking statesmen, we understand, have also been consulted in this particular matter. We haven't been told any specific names as far as these statesmen concerned, but consultations have happened. What we don't know yet is, and the political parties have called for this, whether that has been extended to the parties. That we haven't been told.
Right.
Let's settle on the key names we've heard. It appears from what all our sources tell us, and these multiple sources we're checking, that Professor Henrietta Mensah Bongsu's name seems to be the one that the president may settle on eventually.
Indeed,
chairperson.
Indeed, the information we've picked is that she's likely to be the next chairperson of the Electoral Commission. That is, if the Council of State is able to provide approval as far as the consideration of a nomination is concerned. If she's approved by the Council of State, then she may go on to become the next chairperson of the Electoral Commission. That is the information we picked. The other names that I mentioned are likely to be supporting staff.
Okay, that's the two deputies.
Right. And then the other
right.
commissioners. And for this particular person, if you look at her resume, she's more than qualified for the job.
Hold your horses there. And Lexus spoke to her sometime last year, on his show on the personality profile, and I was reading about it quite extensively last year. But Raymond is here because of his own knowledge of who Madam Professor Henrietta Mensah Bongsu is. Who is she, and why would her name be circulating in these circles at this time when the substantive EC chair is needed?
Okay, so the most important you should know is that until the late last year, Professor Mensah Bongsu almost made it to the ICC's, what they call it, court. So the panel
International
of Judges,
Criminal Court.
Yes, she almost made it there. She was in the last round of voting, but it couldn't go through the last round of voting. She lost to an Italian competitor. So she was Ghana's chosen, ECOWAS chosen for that particular position.
An important point you make there. The president
actually campaigned
for
her, pushed for her nomination to go through. She came up against 11 other contestants. Eventually, she lost the position to a Ugandan and also somebody from Benin.
And you can read a lot into that the president likes her. I mean, and the president, remember the president did sort of a shuttle trying to, because the president sent our ambassador at large, Mr. Edward Mahama, to go to ECOWAS and formally present her name. The ECOWAS chair then told Edward Mahama to come back and ask the president to personally reach out to his colleagues, members of the ECOWAS, for them to support her. And ECOWAS as a bloc put their weight behind her because the president convinced them to.
At the time that we even had, what they call it, somebody from Benin also being in that particular race, interestingly. Yes, the ECOWAS decided to say that the Ghanaian person was what we were going for.
Unfortunately, she did not get the support of AU when it mattered most.
Yeah, so two other countries actually got the support of AU to be representatives on that panel, but she was also part of the panel, the 11-member panel that served as the National Reconciliation Commission. Remember, between 2002 and 2004, that particular commission that sought to reconcile Ghanaians, she was on that particular panel. In between that time, let's look at it this way. She's been director of the Lagos Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. She's also been director of the Ghana Faculty of Law, the University of Ghana, now School of Law, and she's actually been there. Still, she teaches there as a professor of law. Her specific area of teaching, actually,
criminal law.
Yes, she does criminal law. She also does jurisprudence and conflict resolution theory and practice at that particular faculty. We know that she was the first one to have obtained the Anne-Marie Ofori, prize. And also, we do know some time ago that she's earned the Macmillan Prize for Best Graduate Student from the Volta Hall. And she's been to both Yale. She's a Fulbright scholar. She's been to the University of Ghana, where she did her first law degree. And also, her professorial thesis has been on very important areas. Now, she's been Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General and Head of the Rule of Law Sector of the United Nations in Liberia for 4 years.
And that for me was important. And I just pulled out the letter that government Ghana sent to the ICC, making the case for her, and that was a key point that was made, because you need somebody who has some international experience. And remember, in Liberia, she also played a role in their own reconciliation process because of her background back home.
Yeah, and of course, she actually led the United Nations peacekeeping mission there as its deputy head, and also the United Nations family effort on the reconstruction of law enforcement, legal and and judicial sectors of Liberia, virtually rebuilding the Liberian legal system and putting it where it's supposed to be.
That is central. And Elting, let's talk a bit about. You mentioned earlier that she's qualified to hold that position, but my curiosity and what interested when I looked at her CV is the number of years she said that not really as a practicing lawyer. I think she was called to the bar before I was born, early 1980. I think it's 1981.
Yes, and actually she got a master's in 1985.
Yes.
So I mean, yes, it was in 81 that she actually was called to the bar.
And so she's been practicing. She's been well. She's had the qualification because I don't want to say practicing because she herself last year when she spoke to Lexis confessed that she didn't practice for long.
Right.
Yeah.
And she had to sort of leave that
because
and
of her
focus
case
on
actually.
Yes.
To raise the
so
family.
she's qualified for that, and she's called to the bar for she's had a qualification for what? 3 decades.
Yes.
More than 3 decades. In fact, almost 4 decades.
Actually, 36 good years.
Yes, almost 4 decades. So that's quite an outstanding. And in the case we made to the ICC, Ghana was quite emphatic on the fact that she qualifies to be a Supreme Court judge.
Right.
She qualifies to be a Court of Appeal judge, and that is important because the person who occupies the position of the EC chair is equated to an appeals court judge.
Yeah. And one other position that's also important, she actually served as the United Nations Independent Panel on Peace Resolutions and Operations. This is as far back as 2014 through 2017. She was on that particular panel. And that's the high-level panel by the United Nations on Peace Operations.
Let's look at the other names. Dr. Emmanuel Kwete.
Yes.
The thing about that, his name had come out before.
Yeah, exactly. Evans.
But the confirmation we got today, and myself and you were double-checking this because of concerns that we had already when his name had come up. And all our sources said the name is there.
Yes, the name is Dr. Emmanuel Kwete. And the information we have is that he's not been considered to head the EC, but as a supporting staff. Now, for those who may not know, he's a founding executive director of AIDA, one of Ghana's leading research and advocacy organizations established in 2000. He's also a political scientist. He has a PhD in international politics and development obtained at the University of Stockholm, Sweden in 1994. He's a competent academic and accomplished manager. Kwete is also a passionate advocate of democratic governance and human rights development. Now, information I've picked is that he is being pushed. Indeed, the civil society groups also presented a proposal to the presidency. I mean, identifying certain individuals, for them, they are of the view that they stand tall in working to reform our electoral process and also helping with our electoral development. And names Dr. Emmanuel Kwete, H question paper were the names that were contained in
the head of CDD.
Exactly, that went to the presidency.
Those were the 2 additional names that civil society presented.
Exactly. So it is not surprising that these names also found its way in the letter, we are told, is before the Council of State, asking for their consideration and approval.
The interesting thing about Dr. Kwete, and people forget this, but in the 2012 elections, he played such a central role in even with the EC when things got pretty heated. Remember him with the Peace Summit. Peace Summit they did in Kumasi, got all the candidates
committing to peace and all of that.
That declaration. So he's worked closely when they on the civil society platform. They've collaborated with the Peace Council as well, working closely with the EC back in 2012 and in 2016 behind the scenes. I know this for certain. Behind the scenes, when things got pretty heated and controversies abound then. And so he's had some form of quite significant amount of dealings with the Electoral Commission back in the 2012 elections and 2016 as well. But H. Kwesi Prempeh, I don't know. I mean, what do we know about him, apart from the fact that, of course, he has CDD?
Yes, I mean, he's been an advocate in the country for a very long time, proud to head in the CDD. He was actually the director of legal policy and governance at the same CDD. And he's been teaching law at Seton Hall University for some time now. That's in the US. He's actually in New Jersey. He's taught constitutional, corporate, and international business law courses since 2003. And what we've also known, of course, if you are some very active person, he is one of the best brains that I can find, even on social media. And of course, he serves on the board of directors prior to his appointment as the leader there, and also serving on the Access University board, which we all know is in this country. I mean, in his sabbatical years, he's been a visiting professor to many places, including Game Park, where he's delivered very wonderful lectures. Professor Pempe has written and consulted on several issues like constitutionalism, governance, legal policy, and democracy in Ghana and the rest of Africa. He was selected as a Reagan Fashion Democracy Fellow by the National Endowment for Democracy in the U.S. in 2011. He's a graduate of Yale Law, and where he served as
so we have
fellow.
two Yale graduates
yes.
being considered for the
yes. And he's also been a teaching fellow there, and also been an editor of the Yale Law Journal for some time.
Well, that pretty prestigious, and we've seen, for me, publicly, his advocacy in some of the key areas of electoral reform, etc. He's been quite, but the thing is, he recently just took up the CDD position.
Yeah.
He recently, when Professor Jumabodi
had to move on to Afrobarometer.
Yes, recently. I mean, I doubt if it's been a year since he took.
Less than a year, actually.
You know, so that. But as Elton has just confirmed from the Jubilee House, the civil society groups thought that these two names could do the job, and obviously nobody can doubt his credentials in terms of his ability to navigate, that particular position, if indeed he gets it.
And then the last person, as per our checks, is Kathleen Adi, who currently is the Deputy Commissioner of the National Commission for Civic Education. We know that she's a renowned activist with special interest in governance and human rights. Before being appointed by President Akufo-Addo as Deputy Commissioner of the NCC, she worked with various civil society organizations in Ghana, including the Center for Policy Analysis, CEPA, where Ms. Adi worked as Research and Communication Officer. She also worked at the Center for Democratic Development as the Afrobarometer Communications Manager.
That's where
with oversight of 7 African countries. So if you look at her credentials, you are likely to see a deputy chairperson who may be in charge of communication and corporate affairs based on her resume.
Another thing we can also tell you that you can expect that name this week, and the only process left is the consultation with the Council of State. But these are the names that we understand that the consultations will center on. Listen, the political parties are already raising a few issues. The NDC today has issued a strongly worded statement, and for the first time, the party itself confirms that their members across the country, and this statement was issued directed at its members across the country, really, but was put in the media and signed by the national chairman. He rarely does that. Normally, you see the General Secretary doing that. So for you to see the national chairman signing a statement confirming, admitting that their members are agitated and restless, it tells you, that they're taking this very seriously. And what are they saying in this statement, LT?
So for them, the leadership of the NDC, according to the statement, has noted with widespread condemnation, outrage, and general agitation over the government mechanization of the Electoral Commission. We wish to assure party members and the entire nation that the NDC remains committed to safeguarding our democracy, which we have all toiled for and nurtured. The NDC will therefore resist the deliberate attempt by the Akufo-Addo government to abuse constitutional processes with the sole objective of manipulating the electoral process, whilst acknowledging the legitimacy of the enormous pressure from the rank and file to exercise.
So there is enormous pressure from the rank and file of the party.
Absolutely. Their constitutional right by demonstrating against this blatant assault on our democracy. We wish we renew our earlier appeal for all to remain calm until the funeral of our fallen hero, the former Vice President of Ghana, His Excellency Kwesi Bekwin, Mr. Arthur. Now they are saying that once the funeral is done, we wish to affirm our strong resolve that the NDC and our democratic allies, in fulfillment of our constitutional obligations, will surely take decisive steps to register our revulsion in the strongest possible terms against the flagrant abuse of the legal process after we have accorded our comrade a befitting send-off on the 27th of July 2018. The leadership understands the restlessness among party members and the general people of Ghana in general. Please be assured that the President Akufo-Addo and his collaborators will not be allowed to get away with the premeditated, cynical, and shameful subterfuge to subvert the electoral process and undermine the growth of our democracy.
And Raymond, you say this statement, aspects of it sound familiar in comparison to what we heard Charlotte say herself say in the statement.
She equally said that people should keep calm, she will come out, steps will be taken after the late vice president's burial and everything succeeded, and because of that, she's not going to be out there.
Let's speak to the PPP's National Secretary, Murtala Mohammed, who joins us on the line. Hello, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you for the opportunity, and good evening to your listeners.
Also join us on the line is the Director of Elections of the governing New Patriotic Party, Mr. Evans Nemako. Mr. Nemako, I'm grateful that you joined us. Let me start with you, Mr. Murtala Mohammed. So we've heard these names as multiple sources confirming them. As far as your party is concerned, what are the elements, the characteristics that you're expecting the president to consider in making these appointments?
Well, we have said it before. Apart from the dictates of the Constitution, we think that the person should be somebody who is level-headed, somebody with enough experience, somebody who cut across the political divide, accepted by all the sides, at least majority of the political players and stakeholders. Somebody who understands public service. At least, if you can get this in a character, is somebody we can is somebody we will accept. So if you should have this character, we will accept you.
So, tell me about the names that we've heard, sources confirmed to us the president is most likely to appoint, particularly Madam Henrietta Mensah Bonsu.
Well, I think I should be strict. I don't have an iota of doubt in a competence or experience. Neither do I have doubt in academic credential, also an international exposure. However, I think age is not on her side. Madam is over 70 or 70 plus.
No, I want you to hold on. I want to hold on to that because I want to hold on to the age bit because I want to quickly indicate what the age really is. Raymond, she's certainly not 70.
No, she's not there. She's actually even retiring soon, so she's
from the university.
Yes,
it's like the best. So she has a few. Remember that the former chair. Afrajan himself went all the way to I think 70.
That's actually the dimension.
So
she has a few more years, Murtala Mohammed.
Yeah. So the point I'm saying, I'm not saying that it is wrong for him to appoint her at that age. The point is that age is not on her side. She has some few years to retire. We want somebody who will gain a lot of experience, and longevity, works. And we have experience in Afarijan. We were all comfortable with Afarijan. You don't go pick somebody who is close to retirement and appoint as the EC chair. It looks as though there are no qualified persons to occupy that space. I think Dr. Akwete suits that position. He'll be accepted by all. He appears as though as somebody who is objective, who doesn't have a political coloring. Look, I have a hunch that our brothers in the NDC will oppose Madam Henrietta Bonsu's appointment. Don't forget, perception really counts in these matters. I'm not saying it's true. She doesn't belong to the MPP. Like I told you initially, I don't believe that she doesn't qualify for the position. But perception matters. Remember the reconciliation committee that was set and the hula baloo that went around all the members that they appointed. The same NDC people made a whole lot of propaganda out of it. It's not something I believe, but I'm telling you, our brothers on the other side will oppose Henrietta. And that is why we think that the government should have consulted broadly. We were not spoken to. I don't think the NDC were spoken to. And so, for me, she's qualified. Like I told you initially, we don't doubt her credibility. But we think that Akwete would have been the best person to be the EC chair himself.
Thank you. Stay on the line for me briefly. Let me bring in Evans Nemako, who is the Director of Elections with the MPP. Mr. Nemako, thank you for your time here on Newsnight. We lost you earlier.
Yes, Evans, good evening. I hope you are doing well.
We are great. For you, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because you are the governing party. The president will make a decision, and that decision, you cannot object to. You simply have to accept it. And so I assume the names that have been confirmed to us, names that I guess you endorse, particularly Henrietta Mensah Bonsu and the others.
Well, Ivan, thank you once again. I think that what I want to say about this issue of the supposed appointment by the president will mean a mere allegation. We are yet to receive official communication.
We haven't said the president has made an appointment. Not at all. I need to address that because there's been a news item that has been circulating today that the appointment has been made. We double-checked that too, and we were told emphatically that is fake news. What the news is that we are reporting is what our sources have told us, the name that the president is considering and who he is likely to settle on based on the people he's spoken to already, including Dr. Farijan. And the name on the top of that list, we understand, is Henrietta Mensah Bonsu.
All right, Evan, thank you. But what I would say to that is that I think we just have to wait patiently for the Council of State to advise the president on the right person to be appointed for such a position. What we know of is that since the three, Madam Charlotte and the two were relieved of their position, it is important that the president get a replacement. And Ghana needs that. You need somebody as the EC who is an independent-minded person, who is very firm in approach and orientation. Somebody who is apolitical. It shouldn't be a non-partisan person so that our democracy will grow. If you look into the Constitution, Article 43, 44, 45, it is clear that, Evans, I'll plead with you that we exercise a bit of restraint in discussing these issues for now. If I decide to discuss you that Evans has been nominated by the president to occupy the position of the EC in the public domain, and it ends up that you are not the one who has been appointed, I think I may have discussed you in vain. So,
even for the president, he will consider names, and he will have to still chop it down to one person. He will meet his cabinet, he will consult people will throw names. So even the president will do that. As media people, our job is to get that information and put it out there. So we are just simply doing what we normally do. But I get your point. Murtala Mohammed, and you had a lot of issues with the outgone EC chair. And I guess that has influenced the expectations you told us earlier. How soon are you expecting the name to come out in terms of, because currently there's a vacancy, and is it important to have it as soon as possible? Or
very important.
Or you want a delay to allow more consultations better?
I think so. I think that very soon the president will Council of State for the appointment to be made. The EC has a lot of programs to undertake. Very soon there's going to be a referendum about the creation of the new regions. And also it is important that the EC get the stakeholders together, the political parties, to discuss the issues, come up with a roadmap towards 2020. So it is important that we have the full complement of the EC outfit to ensure that these issues pending are properly discussed.
Thank you very much. That's Murtala Mohammed. He is the secretary to the PPP. Also, I had Evans Nemako, who is the director of elections with the New Patriotic Party. Coming up on Newsnight.
Parliament approves a $90 million loan for the establishment of the University